On the 4th of December 2021, Gambia held a presidential election, first time after the long-time president Yahya Jammeh was deposed in the regional coup in 2016, after himself was defeated in the 2016 presidential election. The current president Adama Barrow seek re-election together with 5 other candidates for this election. But what I want to share about the Gambia election is its unique way of how people vote in the election. Introduced in 1965, the Gambian voters use marbles to vote, and of course if you lose your marble you will go crazy because that's your voice, by the way. And after they get your own marbles to vote which one of the candidates, and to choose which candidate they want to vote to, there is quite a number of drums in the voting center depending on how much candidates are running in the election. Each drum represents each candidate who are contested in the election. So if you have a one marble, so you put with any candidates that people like. And then you might be asking, why does Gambia use a marble to vote in the election, not using paper like the other countries would? The reason is that Gambia is one of the countries with low literacy level. Less than 30% of the population are literate, can read and write, and thus during the campaigning, the candidates more use their own pictures, use symbols than words, because people cannot read but people can see and listen to all the sweet promises. And the usage of marbles during the voting process reduced the voting fraud, which everyone can listen the marble drop from every vote that people cast to. And since the drums were really heavy, even if it's empty, and ghost votes are difficult because like how the ghost can carry out heavy marbles and drums to vote anyway. But voting using marbles and put into the drums also has its own disadvantages. It is heavy and need more manpower to carry up the drums from the voting place to the counting center and such. And since there are more candidates than before, there are more drums needed in the voting center, so there are a lot manpower there to carry. And think of it, let's say the building is like a 2 or 3 story high and the drum need to put on the 3rd floor. Imagine the effort to carry up all those drums of ups and down. And do remember that Gambia is an African, and since Gambia is one of the lowest literacy level in the world, so don't expect the building has elevator or lift, by the way. And because of voting using marbles is so heavy and inconvenient by itself, there are calls for changes to switch from voting with marbles and to voting with papers, as with other countries should. And since the paper is lighter and easier to carry, and it is also cheaper to print. However, there are also issues with the paper voting. It is susceptible to voting fraud and it takes a long time to count. It is quite actually a normal thing for African countries to have like a 2 or 3 weeks counting and recounting every vote possible. And there's also possibility of vote rigging, because 2 or 3 weeks you don't know what happened between the voting and also the final counting process. And it is also the cause of the post-election riots in many African countries, which plagued quite a number, for example in Ivory Coast in 2000. As such, in conclusion, Gambia election is one of the kind in the world where neither paper or electronic ballots were used in voting process. They use marbles. So you might say they are crazy because they are using marbles. And marble voting might dare to stay because of the transparency and also the easiness of usage, and because marble voting has a less voting fraud, faster vote count, and it also unique on its own. But do other countries can copy the marble voting? I don't think so, because like in the recent election, like here in Malaysia, there are one places up to 5 or 6 candidates. Do you think that your country can also use a marble voting method like this? Maybe you can tell more in the comment section. Thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video episode, yeah, whatever.